He's the #1 challenger, and still he don't get a shot at the title. So working with a guy like Sylvester Stallone, he's a perfectionist. There might be people that just don't like you for whatever reason. A lot of people out there don't like me. I deal with that.
Mr. T, whose real name is Lawrence Turode, became one of the most recognizable faces in the 1980s. He had the muscles, the gold chains, the mohawk haircut, and the unforgettable catchphrase, "I pity the fool." To children and fans around the world, he looked like a superhero who had walked straight out of a comic book. But behind all the bright colors and funny lines, Mr. T was also a man who stood his ground and never allowed himself to be pushed around, not in real life and not on the film set. His strong personality often made him a hero to fans but a nightmare for co-stars who were used to being in control. Over the years, Mr. T worked with many famous actors, but some of those relationships ended in bitterness and hate. He was outspoken and never afraid to call out people he thought were unfair, disrespectful, or arrogant. The result was a list of actors and entertainers that Mr. T simply could not stand. These feuds made headlines, and even decades later, people are still curious about the drama that followed him throughout his career. One of the earliest and most famous clashes was with George Peppard, the seasoned Hollywood actor who played Colonel Hannibal Smith on the A-Team. When the show began in 1983, Peppard believed he was the main attraction. He had the big resume, the movie credits, and the experience. He came from a world where classical training and film roles gave actors status. Mr. T, on the other hand, had no acting school background. He had worked as a bouncer and bodyguard before landing the role of B.A. Baracus. But when the A-Team hit television, kids and families did not care about training or prestige. They loved Mr. T's tough guy charm. His catchphrases spread across schools, his image sold lunchboxes and toys, and suddenly he was the face of the show. For George Peppard, who had imagined himself the leader, this was a painful blow to his pride. The problem grew worse when Mr. T's salary began to outshine Peppard's. The producers realized that Mr. T was the one bringing in the ratings, so they gave him a raise that made him the highest-paid actor on the show. Peppard was furious. He could not accept that a man without acting training was making more money than him, and he started mocking Mr. T's abilities in interviews and behind the scenes. Mr. T did not take this quietly. He confronted Peppard loudly, reading his insulting words in front of the cast and crew, and demanded that he face him directly. Peppard refused, hiding in his trailer, and from that day on the two men spoke as little as possible. They acted like professionals when the cameras were rolling, but the friendship that could have been never existed. Their feud became legendary, and many crew members later said the tension on set was unforgettable. This was just one of the battles in Mr. T's long list of conflicts. Another big one came with Sylvester Stallone. Their relationship started long before Rocky III when Mr. T worked as a bodyguard for heavyweight champion Leon Spinks. Stallone, who had already made the first Rocky movie, wanted to meet Spinks, but Mr. T did not recognize him and refused him entry. Stallone tried to explain who he was, but Mr. T stood firm. This memory stuck with Stallone. Later, when he was writing Rocky III, he needed a new opponent for Rocky Balboa, someone who looked powerful and scary. He remembered the tough bouncer who had refused him years earlier and thought, "That's the guy." Mr. T was cast as Clubber Lang, and the movie made him a star. But even while filming, tensions rose. Stallone was known for careful planning. Every punch, every movement in the boxing ring was mapped out for safety and realism. Mr. T, who relied more on instinct, did not always agree. He wanted to fight the way he thought Clubber Lang should fight, and sometimes he argued with Stallone about the choreography. While Stallone respected Mr. T's natural energy, he also felt his control of the movie slipping. Some scenes had to be shot multiple times, and the production slowed down. Reporters soon noticed Mr. T's big personality, and interviewers loved his funny answers, which sometimes overshadowed Stallone's serious talk about the movie. Stallone had hoped to remain the main focus, but once again Mr. T's charisma pulled the spotlight away. Their relationship never became a true friendship. Stallone respected him as a performer, but Mr. T's stubborn streak made collaboration difficult. This mix of talent, pride, and personality meant that Mr. T clashed with several more stars during his career. His no-nonsense approach won him admiration from fans, but in Hollywood, where egos were large and traditions mattered, it created enemies. Mr. T himself admitted many people simply did not like him, and he accepted it. To him, standing up for respect was more important than making friends with everyone. And this is exactly why, when asked which actors he hated, the list came quickly to his mind. After the famous fallouts with George Peppard and Sylvester Stallone, Mr. T's reputation in Hollywood was set. He was not the kind of actor who would quietly take insults or let anyone treat him as less than an equal. This strong personality shaped more conflicts, and over time, more actors joined the list of people he disliked or openly feuded with. While not every detail became public, stories from sets, interviews, and cast members revealed that working with Mr. T could be explosive. One such figure was Dirk Benedict, another co-star from the A-Team. Benedict played Face, the charming, smooth-talking member of the team, a role very different from Mr. T's tough and no-nonsense B.A. Baracus. At first, fans thought the two characters worked well together, but behind the cameras there was competition. Benedict once hinted that he felt pushed to the side because of how the show began centering around Mr. T. He said the producers used B.A. as the face of the show's merchandise, while Face was not treated with the same importance. Though their feud never exploded as loudly as Mr. T's fight with Peppard, there was an undercurrent of jealousy and resentment. Mr. T noticed the attitude, and while he did not always speak about it, his body language on set made it clear when he was unhappy. The two men worked together professionally, but they never became close friends. Another name often linked to conflict with Mr. T was Hulk Hogan. Both men were larger-than-life figures in the 1980s, and they even worked together in the first WrestleMania in 1985, teaming up in the ring. At the time, it looked like a perfect match, two icons of toughness standing side by side. But behind the scenes, things were not so friendly. Wrestling insiders reported that Hogan felt Mr. T did not respect the craft of wrestling enough and was only there for the spotlight. Mr. T, on the other hand, felt that Hogan tried to control the attention and did not want to share it. This clash of egos made working together stressful, and though they managed to perform on stage, they did not continue as friends afterward. Wrestling is a world full of showmanship, but Mr. T's straightforward personality clashed with Hogan's more political and show-driven style. The list of difficult relationships also includes more subtle rivalries. Mr. T reportedly had friction with Laurence Olivier during a brief project where the legendary actor commented on Mr. T's lack of training. Olivier, who came from the old school of theater and Shakespeare, could not understand how someone like Mr. T could become such a sensation. For Mr. T, these comments were just another example of Hollywood's arrogance. He always said that he never needed acting school because he brought real life, real toughness, and real honesty to his roles. This divide between traditional actors and pop culture stars followed him throughout his career. Whenever someone criticized him for not being a real actor, he fired back by pointing to his popularity and the love he received from fans. Other reports suggest that Mr. T's strong opinions created tension with directors as well. Some filmmakers wanted complete control over every detail, but Mr. T often insisted on delivering lines his way, or moving in a way that felt natural to him. While this made his characters authentic, it sometimes caused arguments. He once said in an interview that if he did not believe in a line or a scene, he would not perform it the way it was written. He wanted to keep his dignity and never look weak on screen. This attitude, while admirable, often led to head-to-head battles with people in charge. By the time the 1990s arrived, Mr. T's career had slowed down, partly because the industry had changed, and partly because of the reputation he carried. Some stars avoided working with him because they did not want the drama. Others still admired him but understood that he was not an easy man to control. For Mr. T, however, this was never a problem. He cared more about staying true to himself than about pleasing others. When he listed the actors he hated, it was less about personal grudges and more about what he stood for: respect, fairness, and honesty. If someone crossed that line, they lost his respect forever. Looking back, the 6 names that stand out most in Mr. T's history of conflicts are George Peppard, Sylvester Stallone, Dirk Benedict, Hulk Hogan, Laurence Olivier, and several directors or producers he clashed with over creative control. Each feud tells the same story: Mr. T was not willing to bend to Hollywood traditions or to people who thought they were better than him. He came from a background where respect was earned, not given, and he carried that belief into the entertainment world. Fans loved him for it, but actors trained in the old systems often hated him for it. His feud with George Peppard showed how jealousy can destroy working relationships. His clashes with Stallone and Hogan highlighted the battle for attention and credit in industries where the spotlight is everything. His tension with Benedict and Olivier revealed how different backgrounds and styles could create deep divides. And his arguments with directors proved that Mr. T always wanted control over how he was shown to the world. In every case, the fights came down to pride, respect, and power. Even though these conflicts gave him enemies, they also made him a legend. People still talk about them today because they reveal the truth about Hollywood. Behind the smiles and bright lights, there are battles of ego, money, and recognition. Mr. T stood out because he was never afraid of those battles. He spoke loudly, acted boldly, and lived by his own rules. That is why, even decades later, people remember not just his gold chains and catchphrases, but also the strength of his character. For Mr. T, hating certain actors was not about petty dislike, it was about standing up for himself when others tried to put him down. And in that way, he lived up to his most famous line, he pitied the fool who underestimated him. When people think of Mr. T, they often picture a man with a fierce haircut, a mountain of gold chains around his neck, and a voice that could scare almost anyone into silence. He was more than just an actor. He was a personality, someone who carried his real-life toughness into the roles he played on screen. But behind that larger-than-life image was a man who often clashed with the people he worked with. His direct way of speaking, his refusal to back down, and his belief in hard work made him both admired and difficult to get along with. One of the first big names he clashed with was Sylvester Stallone, the very man who gave him his first huge Hollywood break. Stallone had worked for years building the Rocky franchise from nothing, and when he cast Mr. T as Clubber Lang in Rocky III, he expected to be the one carrying the spotlight. But almost overnight, reporters and fans became fascinated by Mr. T's story, his background, and his tough guy style. While Stallone was talking about cameras, directing, and film angles, the press only wanted to hear Mr. T growl his famous lines and talk about his past. This shift was frustrating for Stallone. To him, it felt like he was losing control of the creation he had spent years shaping. To Mr. T, however, he was simply being himself. He did not try to steal the spotlight, it just naturally went his way. This created a silent tension between the two men, one that never really exploded but stayed in the background of their relationship. After that, Mr. T's most famous television role, The A-Team, brought him face to face with another conflict. This time, the tension wasn't with a Hollywood veteran like Stallone but with a co-star, actress Melinda Cooley. She played the character Amy Amanda Allen, a reporter who joined the team in their adventures. Cooley was talented and serious about her craft. She had a strong background in acting and believed her role should be more than just the token female on the show. She wanted Amy to be deeply involved in missions, to take risks, and to stand as an equal alongside the men. But the producers of the A-Team had created a show built on fast-paced action and male-driven storylines. They didn't have time for constant rewrites or heavy character development. Mr. T, who was still learning the ropes of television acting, couldn't understand why she was always pushing for changes. To him, it looked like she was being ungrateful. The show was a massive success, making them all famous and wealthy, yet she was still complaining about her character's role. Cooley's concerns were valid, but her constant meetings with producers slowed down the already demanding schedule. Mr. T didn't mince words, he said what he thought, and he thought she was wasting time. Their clash wasn't a screaming fight but a clear difference in values. She wanted depth and equality in her role, while Mr. T believed in sticking with what worked and keeping the machine moving. Eventually, she left the show, and many believed her tension with Mr. T played a part in that decision. Another big name that ended up on Mr. T's hate list was Carl Weathers, the man who played Apollo Creed in the Rocky films. Weathers was a trained athlete who had experience in boxing and football before becoming an actor. He was known for his discipline and his professionalism, especially in the boxing choreography of the movies. When Mr. T came into the picture as Clubber Lang, Weathers didn't see him as a serious actor. Instead, he thought of him as a stunt choice, a man with muscles and attitude but without real technique. During training for the fight scenes, Weathers noticed Mr. T's lack of boxing skills. He pushed for him to learn more formal techniques to make the fights look real on screen. But Mr. T saw this as an insult. His character, Clubber Lang, wasn't supposed to be polished. He was a street fighter, fueled by rage and power, not by technical footwork. For Weathers, authenticity meant accuracy in boxing form. For Mr. T, authenticity meant raw emotion and brute force. Their disagreement grew until it became clear they had very different ideas about what made a fight look real. Stallone had to step in to balance both views. But the damage was done. Mr. T felt disrespected, and Weathers felt ignored. That clash left both men with little respect for each other outside of what was required on screen. Mr. T's clashes didn't stop there. Beyond Stallone, Cooley, and Weathers, there were other names that he locked horns with. One of them was George Peppard, his co-star on the A-Team. Peppard was a veteran actor, classically trained and proud of his long career in film and television. He was the leader of the team on screen, playing Hannibal, and he believed himself to be the real star of the show. Then came Mr. T. With his mohawk, his jewelry, and his tough guy image, Mr. T quickly became the fan favorite. Kids loved him, audiences cheered for him, and even though Peppard was technically the lead, Mr. T was the one getting the attention. This created jealousy and bitterness on set. Peppard was polite in public but made it clear that he resented Mr. T stealing the spotlight. Mr. T, who had little patience for Hollywood egos, didn't hide his feelings either. He thought Peppard was arrogant and out of touch. Their relationship never warmed up, and many crew members later admitted that the two men avoided each other whenever possible. For Mr. T, Peppard was not just a co-star but another name on his list of actors he couldn't stand. Another conflict came with Dirk Benedict, who also starred on the A-Team. Benedict played Templeton, Faceman, Peck, the charming, smooth-talking member of the group. Unlike Peppard, Benedict wasn't threatened by Mr. T's fame, but he had a different kind of tension with him. Mr. T lived by discipline and directness, while Benedict had a more laid-back, sarcastic personality. They often rubbed each other the wrong way, especially when long shooting hours tested everyone's patience. Benedict would make jokes or light comments that Mr. T didn't find funny, and Mr. T's serious tone made Benedict feel like he couldn't relax around him. While their feud wasn't as explosive as others, it was still a noticeable clash that added stress on set. Another actor who ended up on Mr. T's bad side was Lawrence Turode, better known in the Hollywood world as an extra and stuntman before he became a star. He worked with countless people before hitting fame, and stories often came out of those early years about his unwillingness to tolerate disrespect. On bigger productions, this sometimes extended to directors or supporting actors. One story that floated around was about Mr. T clashing with wrestlers and stunt performers during crossover promotions. His fame from wrestling and Hollywood made him a target, and he wasn't afraid to fire back when he felt disrespected. These heated exchanges only added to his reputation as a man you didn't want to get on the wrong side of. All of these conflicts show one clear pattern: Mr. T hated actors who wasted time, acted arrogant, or questioned his authenticity. He valued efficiency, discipline, and being real. When someone tried to slow him down with rewrites, or when someone disrespected his approach, he responded with frustration. Hollywood was filled with personalities, and not everyone could handle his bluntness. But Mr. T didn't care about smoothing things over. He believed in saying what he thought, even if it meant adding more names to the list of people he clashed with. Looking back, it's easy to see why Mr. T ended up with a list of actors he disliked. He came from a tough background, working his way up from being a bodyguard and bouncer to becoming a star. He never went to drama school, he never trained in traditional acting, and he didn't believe in the Hollywood way of doing things. He was authentic, raw, and direct. That made him a fan favorite, but it also created friction with actors and directors who lived by different rules. Sylvester Stallone, Melinda Cooley, Carl Weathers, George Peppard, Dirk Benedict, each of these names represented a different kind of clash. Some were about jealousy, some were about creative differences, and some were simply about personalities that didn't mix. But here's the thing: despite these feuds, Mr. T's place in pop culture never faded. His character B.A. Baracus is still remembered as one of the most iconic TV roles of the 1980s. His performance as Clubber Lang is still quoted today, decades after Rocky III came out. Even with all the drama behind the scenes, he left a mark that could not be erased. He may have hated working with certain actors, and they may have hated working with him, but audiences loved him for the same reasons others found him difficult. He was real, he was tough, and he never pretended to be someone he wasn't. In the end, that honesty is what made Mr. T unforgettable. When Mr. T first entered Hollywood, his rise was fast, and it shocked many traditional actors who had worked for years to earn respect. He was not a classically trained actor. He did not spend years in theater or study method acting in workshops. Instead, he came from the streets of Chicago, worked as a bouncer and a bodyguard, and built his career on toughness, charisma, and the famous line, "I pity the fool." His biggest breakthrough came when he was cast as Clubber Lang, the main villain in Rocky III. But the behind-the-scenes story of that film showed how quickly he could clash with co-stars. Carl Weathers, who played Apollo Creed, had already worked closely with Sylvester Stallone. They had developed a system of fight choreography based on precision and trust. Every punch, every dodge, and every reaction was carefully rehearsed. This wasn't just for looks, it was for safety. One wrong move in the boxing ring, and someone could end up with a broken rib or worse. Weathers expected Mr. T to respect this system, but Mr. T had other ideas. He wanted Clubber Lang to feel like a real fighter, not a staged boxer. So during filming, he sometimes broke from the planned choreography, throwing punches or reactions that felt natural to him. On camera, it sometimes looked great, raw, and authentic. But for the other actors, it threw everything out of balance. Weathers grew frustrated and accused Mr. T of being reckless, selfish, and unprofessional. Stallone, who not only acted in the film but directed it, was caught in the middle. He admired Mr. T's intensity but also needed discipline to keep the scenes safe. To Stallone and Weathers, film fights were about teamwork. To Mr. T, they were about authenticity. This difference in approach caused tension that never fully went away. Mr. T felt Weathers was trying to control him and strip away the natural instincts that made Clubber Lang real. He believed audiences wanted raw power, not overly polished choreography. Weathers believed that Mr. T's improvising put everyone at risk. Even after the film became a huge success, the personal conflict remained. Weathers kept working in the Rocky franchise with dignity, while Mr. T moved on to television and other roles, carrying the memory of feeling dismissed by Hollywood veterans. For him, it was proof that some actors looked down on him because he didn't come from the same acting background. This early clash set the tone for many of Mr. T's future conflicts. He wanted respect for his instincts, but many of his co-stars wanted him to follow rules, and neither side was willing to back down. After Rocky III, Mr. T became even more famous through the A-Team, one of the biggest TV shows of the 1980s. His role as B.A. Baracus made him a cultural icon. But fame didn't erase his clashes with co-stars. On the A-Team, the biggest tension was with George Peppard, the show's veteran star. Peppard came from the old Hollywood system. He was trained, serious, and believed in hierarchy on set. He thought he was the true star of the show. But when the A-Team aired, it was clear that Mr. T's image, catchphrases, and gold chains were stealing the spotlight. This frustrated Peppard, who often made snide comments about Mr. T being a novelty act rather than a real actor. Their relationship was cold and sometimes openly hostile. Peppard believed in discipline and control, while Mr. T believed his charisma was what the audience loved. Then came Dirk Benedict, another star of the show. At first, Benedict was the peacemaker. He tried to smooth things over between Peppard and Mr. T. But over time, even Benedict clashed with Mr. T. The problem started when Benedict wanted to develop his character, Face, with more depth. He worked with writers to create moments of vulnerability and subtle growth. Mr. T thought these moments slowed the show down. He argued that the audience tuned in for action, explosions, and larger-than-life characters, not quiet emotional scenes. Benedict pushed back, saying the show needed balance, action and character together. Their arguments disrupted filming, and when Mr. T accused Benedict of caring more about screen time than teamwork, Benedict was insulted. He stopped trying to mediate and focused only on his own role, leaving the set even more divided. Then came a different kind of clash when Mr. T worked with James Caan on a television movie. Caan was a respected dramatic actor, known for his method acting and deep preparation. He would research, build backstories, and stay in character between takes. He expected everyone around him to match his intensity. Mr. T didn't see the need. He read the script, understood his character, and performed based on instinct. He didn't need weeks of preparation or psychological analysis. To Caan, this looked lazy. To Mr. T, Caan was overcomplicating things. The tension grew during dramatic scenes, with Caan pushing for deeper analysis and Mr. T insisting he already got it. The final straw came when Caan implied that Mr. T was not a real actor, just a personality. Mr. T shot back, saying audiences connected with him because he was real, not because of fancy training. The project got finished, but their working relationship was ruined. Just like with Weathers and Benedict, the core issue was the same: Mr. T valued instinct, while others valued technique. For Mr. T, authenticity came first. For his co-stars, discipline and craft came first. Neither side wanted to bend. Outside of those big names, there were also whispers of tension between Mr. T and other Hollywood figures, including Sylvester Stallone himself. While Stallone gave Mr. T his big break, they reportedly disagreed on set because Stallone wanted tight control as a director, while Mr. T often pushed to do things his own way. There were also reports that producers and crew members sometimes struggled with his strong personality. He was outspoken, stubborn, and protective of his image. But here's the interesting thing: despite all of these conflicts, Mr. T never backed down. He believed that if he compromised too much, he would lose what made him unique. He wasn't trying to be like other actors. He wanted to bring his raw personality into every role. That's what audiences loved, and that's why people still remember him decades later. So was he right or wrong? That's the big question. On one hand, his clashes made him hard to work with, and it cost him some opportunities. On the other hand, standing his ground protected his authenticity, and it gave us unforgettable performances. Without that stubborn streak, maybe we wouldn't have the same Clubber Lang or the same B.A. Baracus. In the end, Mr. T's story is about a man who demanded respect in an industry that didn't always want to give it. He clashed with Carl Weathers, Sylvester Stallone, Dirk Benedict, George Peppard, James Caan, and others. But through it all, he stayed true to himself. Maybe that's why people still admire him today, not just for his roles, but for his refusal to let Hollywood change who he was. What do you think? Was Mr. T right to hold his ground and insist on doing things his way? Or should he have compromised more to keep peace with his co-stars? Share your thoughts, because this debate about respect, ego, and authenticity is what made Mr. T's Hollywood journey so explosive and so unforgettable. To really understand why Mr. T clashed with so many actors, we have to look beyond the set disputes and think about who he was as a person. Mr. T wasn't just another actor. He was a man shaped by a tough childhood, a strong sense of pride, and a deep belief in staying true to himself. Born Lawrence Turode in Chicago, he grew up poor, in a dangerous neighborhood where strength and toughness weren't optional, they were survival tools. From an early age, he developed a hard shell and an attitude that told people, "Don't mess with me." That personality carried over into his career, where he worked as a bodyguard for celebrities before becoming a TV star. When he entered Hollywood, he wasn't trying to fit in with traditional actors. He didn't want to play the game of politeness, hierarchy, or quiet compromise. He wanted respect right away, and if someone challenged him, he fought back. This is one of the main reasons why so many veteran actors struggled with him. Hollywood, especially in the 1970s and 1980s, was built on respect for the system. There was a pecking order. Older actors expected newcomers to pay their dues, show humility, and follow the rules before earning their place. But Mr. T never saw himself as a beginner. When Rocky III came out, he was instantly recognizable worldwide. In his eyes, his success meant he deserved equal footing with anyone, whether it was Carl Weathers, Sylvester Stallone, or James Caan. That confidence often looked like arrogance to others. But to Mr. T, it was survival. He couldn't afford to appear weak, because weakness had no place in the world he came from. In the end, the 6 actors he clashed with, Carl Weathers, Sylvester Stallone, George Peppard, Dirk Benedict, James Caan, and others, were just part of a bigger story. They represent the resistance he faced every time he tried to do things his way. He didn't always win those battles, but he never betrayed his own values. For Mr. T, respect was worth more than Hollywood approval. And that's why, even decades later, fans still admire him. He may have been difficult, but he was also real, and in a world full of pretenders, that made him unforgettable.